طيب ووقتها عند غسل أول جزء من الوجه. And the intention should be when you're washing the first portion of your face. Okay? The أول جزء, when you're about to wash you're about to wash the first portion of your face. والترتيب, now he's defining the word tartib. If you see number 6 on the furud al-wudu, on the obligatory acts of wudu, you see it's tartib. So now he's defining the word tartib. What exactly is it? What does it mean to observe order? It says أَلَّا يُقَدَّمَ عُضْوٌ عَلَى عُضْوٍ, that you don't give precedence to, that you shouldn't give precedence to a limb before the one that is previous to it. So you don't give precedence to a latter limb of wudu over the former one. طيب فصل section. الماء قليل وكثير. Water it can be large in quantity. الماء قليل وكثير. Water is either little in quantity, or it's abundant, or it's lots. طيب القليل ما دون القلتين. A small amount of water. What exactly is the definition of a small amount of water? It is anything that is under the قلتين. How much is a قلتين? How much is قلتين? You know, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. All of this, by the way, is taken from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said, إذا كان الماء قلتين لم يحمل الخبث. And this is in Abu Dawud. If water was to be over قلتين and above قلتين in size, then it does not carry khabath. It does not carry what? It does not carry impurity. What exactly is a qullah? You know what a qullah is? A qullah is basically, he left it as a qullah over in the translation. A qullah is basically a large bucket, a very, very large bucket. It's a large bucket. Till this day, just till recently, they used to have qullas and they probably still do in hajar, qilal hajar, the mention of qilal hajar, which is the jam' of qulla, qilal hajar, which is the plural of the word qulla. It came in a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim as well. So the qilal hajar, these big jars, these gigantic things that you carry stuff in, they're available till the recent times. And Hajar al-Ahsa, the eastern provinces of Saudi Arabia, they're really well known for their qullas, their large qullas. So the point is that the qullah is basically a large pot or something of that sort. The reason why it's called a qullah is because of the fact that the word aqalla yuqillu means to raise something. So the reason why they call it a qullah is because a very large man can only carry this, because it's very, very heavy. So that's why they call it qullah. So the qullatan, 2 qullas, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, إِذَا كَانَ الْمَاءُ قُلَّتَيْن, when water is over 2 qullas in size, لَمْ يَحْمِلُ الْخَبَث, it does not carry any khabath, it does not carry any impurity. It does not carry any impurity. What exactly does it come out to? 2 qullas nowadays, it comes out to about 196 liters or 210 or something along those lines. Some of the ulama, they mention these kind of things. طيب والكثير قلتان. And we said a small amount of water would be considered what? It would be considered what? قلتين, less than قلتين, right? A large amount of water, an abundant amount of water, is more than qullatayn. So anything beyond qullatayn, it does not carry najasa. It's difficult for it to carry najasa. If you were to take a drop of urine and drop it into water, a pool of water, the pool of water wouldn't become najis. But if you were to do it in something that's less than qullatayn, in that case, that pool of water would become what? Right away. طيب. Now after he told you the measurements of both, he said al-qalil, the small amount of water, the little amount of water, is anything that is less than 2 qullas. Wal-kathir is qullatani fa akthar. and the abundant amount of water is anything that is more than 2 qullas, صح? Now he's telling you what are the rulings of these two different measurements, abundant and little. Al-qalil, these little amount of water, يتنجس بوقوع النجاسة فيه. It becomes impure. It becomes impure merely by coming into contact with impurity. Merely by coming into contact with impurity. Then he says, وَإِن لَمْ يَتَغَيَّرْ. Merely by coming into contact with impurity, even if it wasn't to go through a physical change in the three different attributes: the smell, the taste, or the color. طيب. Al-Kathir, now he's going to give you the ruling of Al-Kathir. Al-Kathir, the abundant amount of water, لا يتنجس إلا, it does not become impure except إذا when تغير طعمه, except when the taste of it changes, or the color or the smell. So there's the rulings for both. طيب. And there's a lot of details mentioned to that. For the first one, يتنجس بوقوع النجاسة فيه وإن لم يتغير. It becomes najis by merely having najasa come into contact with it, even if it wasn't to change in those three forms that I mentioned. Then it says وَالْكَثِير, and the lots of najas, the lot of water, the abundant amount of water, it doesn't become najis إِلَّا إِذَا تَغَيَّرَ, except when it changes. Except when it changes in the three different qualities that are mentioned. Except when it changes in the three different qualities, be it a slight change or a lot of change. So now you have a slight smell of urine coming from this water, or alcohol coming from this water. You'd say, khalas, the slightest of change would be considered what? Would be considered najis. However, if that slight change took place with something that's tahir, does that make it invalidate it? Or does that make it najis?
Yeah.
Come on,
above
man.
2 qullas?
No, above 2 qullas.
Oh, yeah. No.
No? Why?
Because 2 qullas is the bare minimum.
But that slight change is with something that's tahir, man.
Oh, slight change in those three. Yeah.
Okay, with what? So what's the answer? The question is, if a slight change occurs with something that is tahir, in water that is abundant, larger than the 2 qullas, larger than 2 qullas in size, so what's the answer?
It's najis.
It's najis. Yeah. So tahir and water that is pure comes together to make something that's najis. Subhanallah. I've never heard of this before.
Wait, I'm so confused.
Look, tahir and tahir cannot make a najis. Najis and tahir can make a najis. Okay? Tahir and tahir cannot make a najis. All of this is referring to najasa falling in. Let's read this line yet again. A little amount of water is that which is less than 2 qullas. Okay? Abundant water is that which is 2 qullas or more. A little amount of water will become impure when any impurity, keyword impurity, falls into it, even though the water does not change. Even though the water does not change. A slight drop of impurity in something that is less than 2 qullas, it becomes najis. But slight drop of impurity, not purity. So if it's a slight drop of impurity, it doesn't do any damage to the water. طيب. A little amount of water will become... Abundant water will not become impure except when its taste, color, or smell changes. Except when its taste, color, or smell changes. But again, this is referring to changes with what? With impurities. As for with purities, there's details to it. So let's leave that. طيب. First one. Is that clear?
I don't get it. Like when you keep on saying you add an impurity to it, but it's tahir. What does that mean?
The water is tahir, tahur. Okay? So if you were to take a dropper and drop a a little bit of impurity into this water. If it's abundant in nature, if it's above 2 qullas, it does not become najis. If it is less than 2 qullas, then what?
What if it's above 2 qullas and it changes the taste color stuff?
Khalas.
Nice.
Just as the author says. Abundant water will not become impure except when its taste, color, or smell changes.
Yeah, but then...
You get it? You get it? طيب. Fasl. Section. Mujibatul ghusl. The things that make a ritual bath compulsory are 6. Things that make a ritual bath compulsory are 6 things. Ilajul hashafa. Insertion of the head of the penis into the vagina. Fil farji. The word farj is not just a vagina, but over here it means a vagina, of course. It means any private part, be it the rear or the front, from the man or the woman. But over here, in this context, it's referring to a vagina. Ilajul hashafa. Insertion of the head of the penis into the vagina. Now, basically, he's detailing it out in very explicit terms. But what he's trying to say is what the Prophet ﷺ, or what came in that narration, where Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala, إذا جلس بين شعبها الأربع وجهدها فقد وجب الغسل. When the man sits between the 4 branches of a woman and he penetrates, the ghusl becomes wajib at that point. So this hadith is what he's referring to. But to detail out when exactly is it that it becomes wajib, is it when the insertion is entirely completed, or is it when you just roam around the sanctuary? But it's referring to particularly when the head of the penis is inserted into the vagina. Now, there's no haya in these kind of matters, because of course we have to teach it on to our kids. That woman that came to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, she said, "Inna Allah la yastahi min al-haq." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does not shy down from the truth. Because the fact of the matter is, these are the ahkam of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They need to be made explicit to ourselves first of all, so that later on, even for us, we can teach it on to our children with explicit. Because a lot of us might have not been able, their parents might have not been able to teach this on to them because of the shyness. But in certain matters, even the Prophet ﷺ, in certain cases, he used to reply back with extreme explicitity. Like the words used to be very, very explicit. And in certain cases, other way around entirely. There are cases where the Prophet ﷺ replied back very explicitly. Very, very explicitly. So, in this case, if it's... the ghusl or the janaba takes place, especially for those of you married, you need to know this, that the janaba takes place when the head of the penis is entirely inserted. Okay? It has to be entirely inserted, and at that point, the janaba takes place. Before that, there's no janaba. So you guys are doing cool before that. طيب. So, وخروج المني. And also, ejaculation. This is also for a man and a woman. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And this is the hadith of Sulaim, where Salama, hadith of Salama, where Sulaim came to the Prophet ﷺ and she said, what? إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَحِي مِنْ الْحَقِّ. Same hadith that I was talking about just now. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not shy down from the truth. فَهَلْ عَلَى الْمَرْأَةِ غُسْلٌ إِذَا هِيَ احْتَلَمَتْ. Then is there, O Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is there a ghusl that a woman has to do when she goes through a wet dream? O Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم نعم. The Prophet ﷺ replied back and said, yes. إذا رأت الماء. If the woman sees fluid. If she sees fluid coming out, then for sure and guaranteed at that point, even if it's a wet dream for a woman, it breaks her. It puts her into the state of janaba, and she has to make ghusl. So khuruj al-mani, the discharge of semen for a man and a woman. Al-hayd. Now these things are for women. So there are 3 things that are for men. Alright, if you want to put a circle around it, because it's more important to you guys. The first of them is ilajul hashafa. The first one, number 1. Number 1 is particular for men. Okay, that is the insertion of the head of the penis into the vagina. And okay, it's particular. It's for women as well in the sense that their ghusl breaks as well. طيب. Then number 2, the death. No, not death. Sorry, 3 things that are both women and men are equivalent in. 3 things that a woman are separately about in. Okay, I made a little mistake there. Number 1, 2, and 3. Number 1, 2, and 6. Circle those. Number 1, 2, and 6. Number 1, 2, and 6. So the ilaj al-hashafa, discharge of semen, and death. These 3 things, both men and women have to make ghusl from, because of course women experience sexual intercourse just as men do. Also discharge of semen, also death. However, hayd, menstrual bleeding, nifas, postnatal bleeding, and childbirth, these are things that only are for women. So number 3, 3, 4, and 5, they're all for women. Number 3, 4, and 5, they're all for women. Number 1, 2, and 6, they're for men and women. So you have al-hayd, the menstrual bleeding. So when a woman goes through a menstrual cycle, at that point, it becomes after that it becomes wajib for her to make ghusl. It becomes wajib for her to make ghusl. This is based on the verse in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْمَحِيضِ قُلْ هُوَ أَذًى فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاءَ فِي الْمَحِيضِ وَلَا تَقْرَبُوهُنَّ حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَ. This is the point over here, that they ask you, O Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about mahid. They ask you about hayd. قُلْ هُوَ أَذًى. Tell them that this is something that is disliked. This is something that is adha. It's not really pure. طيب. فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاء. Then stay away from the women. فِي الْمَحِيض, during hayd. That does not mean don't eat with them. It's referring to particularly sexual intercourse. فِي الْمَحِيض. Why? How do you know it's referring to sexual intercourse? Because the word mahid, it's masdar mimi, and so, the word mahid is not masdar mimi. It's referring to the place. It's referring to the place of hayd. What's the place of hayd? It's the private part. So because of that, the ulama, they said فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاءَ فِي الْمَحِيض. Stay away from your women in their hayd time. The word mahid can mean the time of hayd, and it can mean the place of hayd. Okay, so that's why we realize that it's referring to sexual intercourse particularly, and during the hayd time, because the word mahid has 2 different meanings. It can mean the time, it can mean the place. The place of hayd being the private part, the time of hayd being the whole period that a woman goes through every month. وَلَا تَقْرَبُهُنَّ. And during that time, don't come close to them, as in don't have sexual intercourse with them. حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ. Until they become pure. And then when they become pure, فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَ. And when حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ, until they become pure. فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَ. And when they physically go out and purify themselves. When they physically go out and purify themselves. The word تَطَهَّرَ has a shadda on the ha. تَطَهَّرَ. Okay? So the ulama, they said that this is referring to, it has a shadda on ha. So the ulama, they said this is referring to you physically taking it upon yourself to do something. Okay? You physically taking it upon yourself to do something. So, حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ, when her bleeding goes away, she's become pure now. Now it's upon her to go physically wash herself. If it is upon her to go physically wash herself, then it's wajib upon. That means it's wajib upon her to make ghusl, right? So that's how they understood that it is wajib upon a woman to. Was that clear? That because of the shiddah, it shows us that it's referring to an action that is that doesn't just occur, rather it is made to occur. So she has to go and take a shower. طيب. فإذا تطهرن فأتوهن. Then you can do as you please. طيب. One nifas, and also nifas, which is postnatal bleeding during this time as well. After it, she has to take a shower. Wal wilada, and also after childbirth. Be it a woman, even if she doesn't have nifas, even if she doesn't have bleeding after childbirth. مثلا, for example, she doesn't have bleeding after childbirth for whatever reason. Just the mere fact that she went through childbirth, she bore a child, and then that child came out of her, that mere fact that happened, it becomes wajib upon her to make ghusl as well. So if she, let's say, never had postnatal bleeding, and she just bore the child and she went through childbirth, just the mere fact that she bore the child and she delivered the child, it would become wajib upon her to make a ghusl. And by the way, childbirth over here, delivering the child, it is in any form. It is in any form, even if it was an unnatural childbirth or whatever. Even in that case, a woman will have to go and make ghusl. And death, maut. طيب. Now, the furud al-ghusl, the fard things in ghusl, the things that are fard. So if a person has janaba, he's going through janaba, major ritual impurity, okay? If a person is going through that sort of impurity, then it is wajib upon him to make a ghusl before he prays salah, before he does certain actions. طيب. The wajib things are only two, and this is really important. Why is it important for us to know the furud, or the obligatory actions in wudu and the obligatory actions in ghusl? The reason why it's important for us to know this is because what if you don't have a lot of water? As you'll see inshallah when we go to Medina, hopefully Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us the opportunity to meet the Sheikh Ilyas al-Barmawi. We'll take you there, and inshallah ta'ala he'll give you guys ijaza in the mud of the Prophet ﷺ. The mud of the Prophet ﷺ. Mud of the Prophet ﷺ is the amount of water the Prophet ﷺ used to use. It's like a little container. It's the amount of water that the Prophet ﷺ used to use to make ghusl, to make wudu. And the sa' also of the Prophet ﷺ. So he'll give you both, with the narration all the way down to the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ that passed it down for the Prophet. The sa' of the Prophet ﷺ was the amount of water the Prophet ﷺ used to use to make ghusl, the Prophet ﷺ. Sa' is equivalent to 4 amdad, 4 muds. And that's why it's important for us to know why all of these furud and all these wajibat. Why? Because sometimes a person has very little water, so he needs to know everything that's wajib. Or why is it important for a person to know all the arkan in prayer? The reason why it's important is because sometimes a person only has a certain amount of time left in salah. So in that case, it's wajib upon him to do only the wajibat. So all of his prayer is done within the time. So these are things that a person needs to know, and it's very, very important. And another reason why it's important to know, however, is, for example, what happened with you earlier on. So you don't delay the class. You can only go and do the furud al-ghusl. You don't have to do the whole 9 yards. You can only do you can do only the obligatory actions that a person needs to purify himself. You don't have to do the whole 9 yards in 15-20 minutes, and Jazakallah khair. طيب النية. طيب النية. The first of those two actions, wudu might have been a little bit confusing. Ghusl, if you guys don't remember it, we're going to have problems. Ghusl is so easy to remember. It's so easy to remember. Niyyah, like anything else you do, and just washing your body. Niyyah, like anything else you do, and just washing your body. Two wajibs, faqat, la ghayr, nothing else. طيب? Only two. Only two. We'll get to that. Only two. طيب. النية. As for the niyyah again, the niyyah has to be attached, because the definition of a niyyah is قصد الشيء, to intend something مقترنا بفعله, simultaneously as you do the first part of the action. So the niyyah has to be there right when you're about to wash the first body part, which is what? Which is what? The entire body. When you're making ghusl, you don't have two body parts. The whole body part is considered the whole body is considered one body part. The whole body is considered what? One body part. The whole body is considered one body part. So, and the niyyah has to be there as you are just about to begin the wash of your body. This is the wajib things in wudu. وَتَعْمِيمُ الْبَدَنِ بِالْمَاءِ, to ensure that the water reaches the entire body, and nose and mouth in the madhab of Shafi'i is not included. The nose and the mouth in the madhab of Ash-Shafi is not included. According to some of the ulama, however, it is included. But according to the Shafi'iyya, the nose and the mouth are not included, and also, the eyes, within the eyes is also not included. And besides that, everything. So if you have, a lot of hair on your arms, on your legs, or anything like that, you have to make sure that the water not only reaches the skin of the leg, but every portion of the hair. The water has to, as the Prophet says, also underneath your beard, for example. If the beard, even if it's thick, the water has to reach right till the end. The Prophet said, تَحْتَ كُلِّ شَعْرَةٍ جَنَابَةٍ. The janaba is found underneath every hair. Every hair, below it, you find janaba. So you have to get the water to reach every portion of the hair, and underneath the hair, and everything around that. طيب. Now, شروط الوضوء, and I think inshallah ta'ala, bi'idhnillah, this is probably the last thing we're going to be reading for the day, unless we have some more time. طيب. فصل, section, شروط الوضوء, the conditions of wudu. The conditions of wudu are 10 things. Al-Islam. Now, the conditions of wudu are 10 things, okay? These 10 things are the same thing as the same 10 things that are the conditions of also ghusl. So these are not just the conditions of wudu. The author said only wudu over here, but really they're the conditions of wudu and ghusl alike. Okay, they're the conditions of wudu and ghusl alike. Write that down as a reminder, that these are not only are these the conditions of wudu, rather they're also the conditions of what? Of ghusl. طيب. Now these conditions, the first two conditions, are a condition for every single act of worship that exists. For every single act of worship that exists. Number 1 and number 2. Number 1 and number 2. Number 3 is a condition for every single act of worship that requires Taharah. That requires Taharah. And the rest of them are particular for wudu and ghusl. طيب. Now let's read through them. Al-Islam, a person has to be a Muslim. So the wudu of an individual that's not a Muslim, or the ghusl of an individual that's not a Muslim, is not acceptable, except in one situation. Except in one situation. Now write this situation down. Why? Because it's important and very relevant for back home. Except in one situation. The only time that you accept the wudu or the ghusl of an individual that is a non-Muslim is a non-Muslim woman that is obviously from Ahlul Kitab, that is from the people of the book, that is married to a Muslim man, and before so she wants to wash herself up for the ghusl, for she wants to wash herself up for intercourse or whatever, in those kind of cases. So in that case, the ghusl is acceptable from after hayd or whatever. You have to, because after hayd, by the way, after the menstrual cycle, a woman is not allowed to have sex with the man until when? Until after she goes and takes a shower. Even if she's out of the menstrual cycle, you cannot have sexual intercourse, the husband and the wife, until she finishes and takes the shower. Until she finishes and then takes the shower. Now this goes back to that shiddah on top of tatahar. فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْ. So, and when you go and physically make the effort to go and purify yourself. Not only the purity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted by stopping the bleeding, by the fact that the bleeding stopped. طيب. So only in one situation, a kafir, do we accept that ghusl is the woman and that is the woman that went through a menstrual cycle, and then she's a non-Muslim, however, from the people of the book, and married to a Muslim man, and for her to make herself halal for him, she needs to go take a shower from this menstrual cycle. طيب. وَالتَّمْيِيز. And also, how did he translate tamyiz here? The age of understanding. The age of understanding. So, at-tamyiz, also the tamyiz. So you have to make sure that you have reached the age of tamyiz, the age of understanding. Before the age of understanding, wudu is not acceptable from the child. Before the age of understanding, wudu is not acceptable from a child. What exactly is the age of understanding? Some of the ulama, they said 7 years of age. Some of the ulama, they said 7 years of age. So before 7 years, is the wudu of a child acceptable? The answer is no. The wudu of a child is not acceptable except in one situation. And that is the child, the male or female child, that wants to make wudu to make tawaf with their parents or his parents. So in that kind of a situation, it's acceptable for the parents to make wudu for the child, and they intend on behalf of the child, because his intention is also not acceptable yet. He's not old enough to do these kind of things. And then they can make tawaf with him. However, it should be noted that the parents should be very careful to bring their children in with najasa to the haram. That's not acceptable. You cannot have a child with a diaper full of, what, and then you bring them into the haram. Okay, so especially during rush seasons, it's very difficult for the woman to go and run out of the haram when she has a child with a diaper full of, stool, or diaper full of urine or something like that. And if it leaks, this is even worse. So a woman should be very careful to do that. However, it is allowed for a woman, and it's rewardful for a woman and a man alike, for her to go and make tawaf on behalf of for umrah or hajj on behalf of the child, like because of that incident where the Prophet ﷺ, he came to that woman, and he said, the woman came to the Prophet ﷺ, she said, Ali hada hajjun, should this child does he have to make hajj? And he said, yeah, walaki ajr, and for you is the reward of this child making hajj. So yeah, he can make hajj, the little children, and they can make umrah, but you need to be careful when you're making tawaf or you're bringing them into the masjid. Najasa, you're bringing najasa into the masjid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No.
So is the established age of 7 like a majority opinion? How did they?
I mean, a lot of ulama, they say this. Other ulama, it's just a definition. Some of the ulama, they said the time that the child can eat alone, sleep alone, use the bathroom alone, and basically his day-to-day chores, he can do them by himself. So this would be also another definition you probably want to add in there. Yeah.
So if somebody who doesn't have
Tamyiz, yeah.
If somebody does not have tamyiz and they...
Child, yani?
Yeah, child who's not at the age of tamyiz.
By the way, the age of tamyiz is different than the age of bulugh. Remember that.
Yeah.
Bulugh is something else. Bulugh is puberty. Tamyiz is age of understanding. Tamyiz.
Yeah, so if a child is not at the age of tamyiz and he's leading salah, then it doesn't count?
No, it doesn't count. At that age, it doesn't count. So that hadith that came to us where the child was about 6 or 7 or something like that. So you understand it to mean that he was above the age of tamyiz. He was above the age of understanding. طيب. والنقاء عن الحيض. And also you have to be pure, and we said this condition is a condition for all acts of worship that are attached to Taharah, so tawaf, so salah, and anything else. النقاء, so to purify yourself, cleanliness from menstruation and postnatal bleeding. So a woman, for her to be able to make wudu or to be able to make ghusl, of course this is the ghusl in terms of the technical meaning of it, in terms of that situation that occurs, or that ritual form that a person is in when he is in the state of janaba, or she's in the state of hayd. So in this kind of a situation, you cannot make ghusl, as in not the linguistic ghusl, which is just to take a shower, but the ritual ghusl, which is to have a niyyah, to wash your entire body, to do all the sunan of ghusl, or not. The point of the matter is to do a ritual ghusl. The ghusl that you are intending now to raise this ritual impurity from you. Hayd, nifas, janaba. For a woman, she cannot do that until she has finished the period of hayd, the period of menstruation, and also the period of nifas, the period of postnatal bleeding. Before that, she cannot make a ghusl. She cannot make a ritual bath. Take a ritual bath. However, she can take a shower. She can take a shower. So what I'm trying to say is she cannot intend that I'm raising my spiritual impurity or my ritual impurity, because ritual impurity for that woman at that moment is their period. Or for example, a man that is just defecating, right, or urinating. While he's urinating, he starts making wudu. This is going against wudu in nature. Wudu in nature is to raise that impurity that took place, the ritual impurity that took place when you urinated or defecated, or for a woman when she went through the cycle. So while the guy is urinating, he starts making wudu. It doesn't work. Just like that, a woman while she's bleeding, she cannot go and take a shower.
What if
she take a ritual bath?
What if it's while it's not urinating, but like you're making wudu and like you pass wind or something? Does that also nullify the?
Yeah, it nullifies the wudu for sure.
So you have to start all over.
All over, all over. وَعَمَّا يَمْنَعُ وُصُولَ الْمَاءِ إِلَى الْبَشَرَةِ. Now number 4 is that you have to be pure, being free from that which prevents the water from reaching the skin. Being free afterwards. Being free from that which prevents water from reaching the skin. طيب. So if a person has Vaseline on, is it acceptable for him to make wudu now? Like, I'm not saying that Vaseline dries off into your skin, into the pores. But I'm saying if you have a whole layer of Vaseline on your hand or some sort of cream, it's not acceptable in this situation for you to make wudu. You have to remove that Vaseline, because the water will never reach down to the pores or the skin. However, if you put it on and now it's dried off, no longer do you have the thick layer of Vaseline on anymore, or any other lotion for that matter, or something like that, creams, then it's okay to do so. طيب. وَأَلَّا يَكُونَ. However, if it's like, for example, dirt, piled up dirt on your skin, okay? If it's like piled up dirt on your skin, and to an extent that dirt now became almost like part of your skin. So some people don't wash themselves thoroughly. So, eventually in these areas, especially, not these areas, like on their arm, it was piled up so much, he didn't take a shower for years, and then it's almost like now he has to rip it off for it to peel off or something like that. It's almost like it's part of his skin. In this case, you don't have to do that. However, in certain parts of the body, you still have to be careful, because dirt can pile up really fast. Like this area, it's called barajim in Arabic. These things are called barajim. So you have to, take these barajim and clean them up really thoroughly. And also your elbow, and also the other elbow, and the knee, and the ankles, and also the ankles and the heel, for people that that have coarse heels. They need to really be careful and almost like chip a portion of their skin off that's dried, for them to be able to have the water reach to the meat, or not the meat, the skin. You understand? طيب. So all of these things the ulama detailed out in books of fiqh. Subhan al-Malik. طيب. وَأَلَّا يَكُونَ, and وَأَلَّا يَكُونَ عَلَى الْعُضْوِ مَا يُغَيِّرُ الْمَاءِ. And also, number 5 is that nothing should be upon the limb that will change the qualities of the water. So if a person has ink all over his arm, and then he makes wudu, okay, so the color of the water will change entirely. Now this water is no longer acceptable for use, because it's no longer called water. It's no longer drinkable. مثلا. طيب. Also, number 6. وَالْعِلْمُ بِفَرْضِيَتِهِنْ. Also, you have to know, number 6, knowledge of the fact that wudu is obligatory. Knowledge of the fact. So if a person was like, wudu is really sunnah for salah, or something like that, and then he goes and makes wudu, his wudu is not acceptable in this case, because he doesn't realize the fact that this is wajib for him to do so. And then it says, وَأَلَّا يَعْتَقِدَ فَرْضًا مِنْ فُرُوضِهِ سُنَّةً. And that also, that he should not presume one of the obligatory actions of wudu, the 6 that we mentioned previously, he should not presume them to be a sunnah. So if he thinks having things in order is a sunnah, his wudu is not acceptable. If he thinks having a niyyah is sunnah, his wudu is not acceptable. If he thinks washing his arms in wudu is sunnah, his wudu is not acceptable. And the vice versa is not true. So if a person thinks one of the sunnahs is a fard, then it's okay. If a person thinks all of the actions of salah or of wudu are even the sunan or the furud, the obligatory or the preferable actions, if he thinks all of these actions are fard, his wudu is still acceptable. The only situation where it's not acceptable is when he thinks a fard, he presumes a fard to be a sunnah. وَالْمَاءُ الطَّهُورِ, and also a person has to have water. You can't make Taharah with Pepsi, for example. I've heard this, somebody said this before. This is so ridiculous. You can't make Taharah with Pepsi. There's no such thing. If you don't have water, don't make Taharah with Pepsi. First of all, it's not logical, because you're going to get really sticky. Pepsi does that, like anyone should know that. But, secondly, you also have to realize that, and also how are you going to do your, istinshaq and, all this kind of things.
So would it be better
You're gonna get a sticky nose from inside.
would it be better to use?
Not better. It's not permissible for you to make wudu.
Oh, okay.
With Pepsi.
What if
the only thing you can use, you cannot. Tayammum. The only thing you can make wudu, the alat or the tools. You should write this down. Of a tahara are a number of tools. You have water. Water is a tool for tahara. You have turab. You have dirt. That's a tool for tahara. You have a dabigh, the tanning object, which we're not going to be taking the chapter of tanning in here, but tanning the skin of an animal to use it as leather. So leather. So the tanning object, that's also considered a tool from amongst the tools of Taharah, of purification. The last tool is a rock for you to make istinja with. Anything else, there's no such thing as Taharah with Pepsi. Or there's no such thing as Taharah with Lysol. If you don't have water, you cannot make this. If you remove the impurity from over here, let's say a little child comes and he or she's wearing a diaper and the urine leaks, you cannot put Lysol on it and use a tissue and clean it off. You have to use water. If you use Lysol or something like that or anything else, or a glass cleaner or something like that, and you just wipe it off like that, yes, the object in of itself is now removed. But the hukum, the ruling of the area is that it's still najis. You cannot pray here. If you were to touch your hand on it, because your hand is not wet, you wouldn't become impure, of course, because impurity only transfers from one object to the other object if moisture is involved. So if I touch you and you had some alcohol on your arm or something like that is now dried off, yes, your arm is impure, but it won't transfer off to my arm unless or until I had moisture on my hand. So this is something to be noted. So the point is that you have to use water. There's no such thing as making wudu with Pepsi or 7-Up or something like that, or even juices or fruit juices and these things, Juicelicious, none of these things work. طيب وإلا يعتقد فرض والماء طهور ودخول الوقت, and also number 9 and 10 are particular for what? They're particular for a person that has a chronic discharge from their body that is continuously breaking their wudu, that is nullifying their wudu. So if for a person that for a woman, a chronic vaginal discharge, woman that is constantly bleeding, okay, so that kind of a woman, she needs to make wudu and ghusl, and she needs to make wudu after when? After dukhul al-waqt, after number 9, after the time of prayer enters. After the time of prayer enters. So she cannot make wudu before the time of prayer enters. If a woman has a chronic vaginal discharge, you cannot, and also time is coming in 5 minutes, she cannot get up and make wudu before the time of prayer enters. She has to wait until the time of prayer enters and then There's the whole list of ahkam that are pertaining to a person that is of such sort. Da'im al-hadath, the individual that is constantly remaining in the state of impurity. Okay, so basically what they do is, for a woman, she would have to clean herself, tie something on her private part, and then make her wudu. And right preceding to that, go and pray her salah. If she waited a little bit of time to pray her salah, like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, then she'd have to do all those actions again. Make wudu, wash herself again, put another tampon or something like that, whatever, to cover it up, and then go and pray, and then go and pray right away. If you wait for 5, 10 minutes, 10, 20 minutes or something like that, khalas, salah has to be, all the wudu and everything has to be done all over again. This is for a woman, again, that has chronic vaginal discharge. And also for a man, that is a person that's incapable of holding back from urine drops or something like that. So certain men have that problem. So they cannot, after they're always, they cannot hold back from intermittent drops of urine. So in this kind of a situation, he has the same ruling as that chronic vaginal discharge woman, where he's going to have to cover himself up so the najasa doesn't spread up all over his clothes. Wash himself, cover himself up, make wudu, then go and pray right away. So these two conditions, number 9 and number 10, are particular for who? A person that is experiencing a constant state of impurity. A constant state of impurity. Number 9, number 10. That you have to make your wudu after the time of prayer enters. Number 9 and number 10. We haven't gotten to 10 yet though.
There is no 10.
There is a 10.
Page 19, please.
Huh? Page 19. 19. Yeah.
Page 19
I don't have
is missing.
Oh, page 19 is missing for you guys? I have it here. Okay. So number 10 is basic. Number 9, write it down then. Number 9 is entering of the time of salah and continuity. Continuity. Okay? And continuity for a person, continuity. So basically you have to do all of these actions consecutively. You cannot stop in the middle. You go wash yourself, clean yourself, put something on to cover up the najasa, not let it spread everywhere, make your wudu and go pray right away. Okay? So continuity. Number 10 is continuity. For a person who constantly remains in the state of impurity. This is for an individual that constantly remains in the state of impurity. And with that being said, we will take a break. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.